Hi everybody, it's Christiana Moore. It's been quite some time since I have done any video, I think over a year actually. Um, and let's just get right down to it. The reason why I stopped taking hormones, I regressed and I got off HRT and testosterone blockers because of all things, it was working too well and too fast. I had a 2.5-year plan to get my life where I wanted to be. But hormones don't care about your plan. Hormones are going to do what they do based on its reaction to your body. So I started putting on a little bit weight too fast. I didn't like that because I've always worked out my whole life and been very lean. And I noticed that my chest was becoming more feminine. Actually, my boobs started to fill out more femininely. So I freaked after a few months, broke down and just stopped everything. Didn't tell my doctor, nothing. And here I am almost a year later. I've been back on HRT for over a month and a half now. And I've been happier in the past month and a half than I have in the last almost year as I've been off them, or was off them, if you will. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. There's so many ups and downs. It drives you nuts. And if you don't have the right support, it makes it that much harder. For me, it really wasn't even not having support. I had support to a degree, but what happened was when things go faster than you anticipate, it's scary. Because what I realized was my 2.5-year plan was enough to be where I work now and make enough money to, so that when I started to show and went more full-time, I wouldn't have to worry. I can go do something else, because let's be honest, many jobs out there in today's world, they're still not ready for people like us. So when I realized that when I got back on the hormones, or before I got back on hormones, excuse me, the first time, my fat deposits were changing, my waistline was becoming more feminine, and that the fat around my waist was redistributing and filling up. So my boy waistline was pretty much going away completely, and my waistline was getting higher, if you will, because, you know, the girls' curves are different. And everybody's different. Everybody's body will do it. The way my body was working was more fuller hips and waist was what I was starting to get. So again, my suits weren't fitting properly because I wear suits to work. I had to go from a 2-piece to a 3-piece just so I could wear a vest to actually push my chest in, because not a lot, but they're starting to show. So again, I just freaked and I stopped. But what I realized was the past almost year has been miserable. I stopped dressing completely. I started doing anything. I was smart this time. I didn't throw everything away. I just boxed it all up and hid it. But what I realized was I wasn't happy. When I started the hormones, I lost all my energy, so I stopped going to the gym. I used to go 5 days a week because it just zaps your energy right out of you no matter what. And I thought, okay, well, now that I stopped taking it, I'm gonna start going back to the gym. I'll just work on my male body again and be done with it. We all know that doesn't happen. You can't, this doesn't go away. And for those of you watching who might comment and be mean and say that we're freaks or we're messed up in the head, let me tell you something. I was never raped. I was never molested. Nothing like that. I grew up a very well-adjusted child. I was the normal boy. I went out and played and did boy things. I had cars and guns and rode bikes and played sports with all the boys and had a normal life. So I thought. I don't know why, how, or when this part of me finally surfaced. But I'll tell you something, I know it was there the whole time. It's not something that I saw, something that someone put in my head. When I was a teenager, trans was nothing. No one even heard of it. It was such a taboo thing. I'd never heard of it. So you can imagine how hard it was for me to try to understand or make sense of why when I hit puberty, all the other boys wanted to date girls and be with a really pretty girl. I would see these girls and I wanted to be them. I didn't want to date them. I wanted to wear what they wore. I wanted to do my hair. I wanted to do my makeup. And that came out of nowhere. So you can imagine how scared I was. I remember having nowhere to go. There's no resources. Didn't feel gay by any means. I never wanted to be with a boy. It was never about that. It was just about me and being feminine. And not like some of you are thinking, it's not faggy feminine. True feminine. Just being a girl. Wanted to comb my hair and go shopping and just feel pretty. That's the only way I can describe it. Just feeling pretty like a girl. I regressed again. And I dated all the hot girls in high school, and I was one of the popular boys, and I'm the one who threw all the parties and played all the sports. And I remember through all of that and looking back, with all that I did and all the friends I had, I remember feeling how alone I was, no matter what. I remember when I finally dressed for the first time, God, I looked terrible. You want to talk about not knowing what you're doing? Oh my God, 19 years old? Ah! But I remember the moment that I got dressed, and I, like every one of us, snuck out, bought a pair of pantyhose that I would never ever dare wear today, a dress at the secondhand store, stole one of my sister's bras, pair of her underwear, and dressed in my room. And it wasn't because I was ashamed, because that's what people say. No, it wasn't about ashamed. I was afraid. Afraid that I knew if someone saw me, they wouldn't accept it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal, everybody. Don't be ashamed. The shame comes from outside influences, not ourselves. I was going somewhere with this. So I remember that was the first time I really felt complete when I was dressed. I remember every year we had the powder puff football game where the girls did football and the boys dressed up like cheerleaders. I'm probably the only one who actually took it seriously and did wig and makeup, and everyone thought I was the cutest work, and I went out of my way to do it, but I still maintained that sense of masculinity underneath so nobody ever guessed. But I remember those when I was most happiest. After high school, I digressed again. I regressed, and pushed it down because I knew nothing about it and I was afraid, and there was nothing out there, and I never knew any other trans, and the internet wasn't even really out there at all. So there's no resources. So when you have no resources, you just don't know. It wasn't until my later teens, my 20s, as a matter of fact, that I started to experiment more with dressing. I lived in a city in California where there was a whole section of town that was, it was for trans and gays. And I remember going to a couple clubs on my own, because of course nobody knew. Because at this time I was already working a job where it's one of the most masculine jobs there is out there. Because again, if you do that, then you don't have to worry about this part of you, because you're masculine, so you're always going to be masculine. I always hung around with the masculine guys, and I always hung out with the cool guys that all the girls wanted to date it. I did all that, and every relationship I ever had, I know that I indirectly ruined, because at the end of the day, I was with these beautiful women who were amazing. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to be with them. I wanted to be them. I wanted to be one of them. Some of us can relate to that. Many of us, I think, can relate to that. So I started to experiment and dressed up a couple times, and I met a queen who actually dressed me right for the first time ever. And I remember when I looked in the mirror and what I saw, was the person inside who's been trying to get out for years. And those few years when I did dress were the times I felt most alive and most comfortable in my own skin. I've never felt comfortable in my skin my whole life, other than when I was dressed. It's not a chemical imbalance. There's nothing wrong with people like us. We didn't ask to be born this way. You want to say, some of you, that God doesn't make mistakes and you need to listen. Well, let me tell you something. I did all that, and I did church, and I did God, and I did everything, and I did therapy, and I went everywhere. If there's God, if there is truly a God, he's a big kid with an ant farm. That's all he is. That's not how this works. It's a universe. It's genetics. It's microscience. Species change all the time. Some species come out different ways. Not everything goes according to plan. Just because the cell splits or the chromosome splits, physically, yeah, maybe, but mentally, it doesn't mean that it's supposed to be that way, if that makes any sense. I have fought this my whole life, guys. And I've tried to be what I think society wants me to be. What I believe God wanted me to be. That's not true. I am just now starting to be who I am and who I have been my whole life. I've just been afraid to show. And not because I'm ashamed, because we all know how society feels. And it's a chance, it's a gamble every time I leave my home. But you can't be afraid to be you. You have to start somewhere. For those of you that never go this far or never do it, I understand. And I feel for you. And I hope that even if you never go as far as I have or I'm going to, because I've been back on hormones for a month and a half, and I will not stop this time. Understand that part of you is normal. What I know is, what you see now, me, the way I look, this is me. I am not dressed up. I am not cross-dressing right now. I have dressed up and cross-dressed my entire life. Every day that I went out, dressed normal for society's sake, to fit in and be able to work and live. That was when I was dressed up. When I go back to work tomorrow and I'm back in boy mode and I'm wearing my suit, to me that is when I'm dressed up. That's when I'm pretending. Hopefully the day will come where I won't have to pretend anymore. That's my hopes anyway. And for all of you that are on HRT or thinking about HRT, or that have gotten off HRT because you went through what I went through, you're not alone. You can always comment, leave notes. I'll get back to you if you guys would like to speak, because I know it's tough not having a support group. And if nothing else, it's nice to have someone else to talk to. You guys, God bless. And I still say God bless. It's just what we do. I think the universe is everything encompassed. But I think when we say God bless, it's our way of making sense of something that doesn't make sense. Everybody take care of yourselves. This is Christiana Moore. I promise more updates.